For usual living house channels for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Macro Monday on Taco Tuesday. Let's take a look at some macro data, charts, and legacy ideas for trading. Looking at the flows globally from James at CoinShares, well above 2 billion last week. 2.75 I think is the number globally. A massive week by any standard. And yes, Bitcoin price hasn't gone anywhere, but eventually the dam will break. Sorry, this is not a paper Bitcoin situation. This is a other people are selling Bitcoin situation, and that's why we haven't gone anywhere. Something that hasn't really gotten any press is the GBTC outflows have basically stopped, which has really helped keep the flows net positive. We're also seeing a big chunk starting to come into ETH. Other assets, not so much. Other geos outside of the United States, not so much. So it's still very much a US story. Looking at the CME basis, just to check, if basis was 35, you'd have a lot of inflows relative to that ARB trade here at 8%. It is probably decently attractive, but less attractive than 10%. OI here has been basically flat on the future side as well. So I don't think we're seeing big demand for the basis trade at the moment. The big idea for Q3, specifically July, is this cup and handle idea, or call it an inverted head and shoulders idea, whatever you want to call it. Take the depth of that, measure it higher, pick whichever points you want, use most of the cup, and it gives you numbers in 130s, 40s, 50s. Sure, okay, I think everybody knows that. The first thing we will need is a higher high. We have not had a higher high in quite some time. Realistically, we haven't had a higher high since May. Once we start to get a singular higher high, then we can get more confident that this is in fact going to play out as expected on BTC with the cup and handle. I think the default position should be bullish. I think we tried to break down, we didn't. Can we try again? Sure, we can try again. 93 would be the level if we do. I'm not positioned for a breakdown. Liquidity, seasonality, positioning, sentiment, dollar weakness, S&P at all-time highs, Qs at all-time highs. I think those are great reasons to maintain a bullish stance here. One thing we certainly don't want to see is this, right? We don't want to see any head and shoulder stuff again after dealing with that all of May, some of June. The cup and handle would be negated if we got lower than 91. And if we pop on the 618 here, the cup and handle would be invalidated below 95.7 is what the data would suggest on backtesting. Anything below the 618 towards 50% really isn't as valid. You've also, of course, got the cloud here, which is starting to signal a bearish TK cross. So you would want a bear to bull TK cross. So there's plenty of stuff to watch and wait for in the moment. But ultimately, the one thing you want first is a higher high. I do like the structure here. I like how it's kind of bull flaggy. That's another pattern I've seen people draw out. All that is valid. I don't see any reason to be bearish here. Yes, it can chop. Yes, it can go down. But it has thus far survived. You can also pop on fractals. Hard to see there, but we should get a new fractal above the current high, 109 something, if this starts to turn around. For most alts, they're kind of just in a waiting pattern. They're going to be turbo bearish if BTC is bearish. Anything above the cloud is fair game. If ETH can maintain a stance above the cloud, there will be a day, I would imagine. I don't know what day it will be, but it's going to be some random day where we get a move here. How much pain do you want to endure is the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to stop loss on this at all? Do you want to just say, hey, the rest of the year, I'm going to try something here. I'm in the arena. I'm going to try something on ETH. Maybe that's something you do because this has been very choppy, very messy. Hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't done anything. Certainly more bullish than bearish and more bullish than it has been in a long time. Sol is another one. Starting to try to maybe think about peaking back above the cloud. Tried to yesterday, has gotten denied so far. But you have to be very attentive to this, and you have to believe in the Kuma breakout. You can do that on Kraken Pro. using a link in the description of this video to set yourself up with an account. But there are lots of charts I'm going to look at today, some on miners, some on the exchanges, where you always have to give it the benefit of the doubt. If you have some consolidation pattern or some breakout after an extended bearish period, I think it's always worth a trade. Whether or not you take the trade obviously is up to you, but a lot of this other stuff on altcoin land really just has not materialized as of yet. If we look at WIF lastly real quick here, also one that I'm watching closely, it is not quite above the cloud yet. It hasn't made a lower low yet, but I think we're in the pay attention zone on a lot of this stuff. So if you're an altcoin enjoyer, if you're a leverage on leverage enjoyer, I don't think we're going to quite see alt season, but there will be plenty of individual setups to continue to watch. And you can just right click any of these charts and set an alert once you're logged in for a level and go on about with your day. You know, you don't have to watch these like a hawk every minute of every waking hour. For the calendar this week, it's a short week. We have July 4th in the US on Friday. I think it's an abbreviated trading day on Thursday as well. Big number this week is going to be the unemployment rate. I don't think there's anything signaling we're going to see much above 4.3, but if we see way above that number, market may freak out. Just something to watch at 8:30, well below, and the market would probably love that as it has in the past. Jolts as well came in slightly above expectations today, and then we have ADP numbers tomorrow, which help preview jobs for Thursday. Rates here still firmly in the no cut camp just yet, even though today Jay said he's open to a cut in July, should the data be there to support that. We're still pricing in a boatload of cuts between now and the end of the year, as well as continuing into next year. Inflation is kind of leveled off here at around 2%. This is where we want it to live. This is going to be more reactionary to data than CPI. So we certainly don't want to see this headed higher. If it can hover at 2 in a volatile fashion, we'll take it. But if this starts to creep up like it did post-COVID, then we're in for a world of hurt eventually, because that means rates will probably go higher. Now, it's going to be very interesting if and when Trump replaces Powell. Powell's replacement brings rates significantly lower, and that pushes inflation significantly higher, if we see that. But that's something to prepare yourself for. It's going to feel good on the way up, and then we'll have another boom bust cycle crash like we always do. That may, in fact, coincide with the 4-year cycle. The Fed zone inflation nowcast has a slight bump here. Slight bump. We're not at 2%. We're well above the Fed's target. We're almost there. We're getting there. And then July, this is 1 day in, but starting to cool off-ish on a few metrics. And looking at GDP, we're not going to get a negative GDP print, so we will not have a back-to-back negative GDP, which is a necessity for an NBER declared recession. Not going to happen. As for the charts, the dollar continues to go lower. I think the general direction and trend should be an expectation of bearish continuation here on the dollar based on everything we're doing in the United States. We're trying to push the dollar lower based on policies that we're putting forth. On technicals, this could be a little tiny dragonfly here. Ultimately, we'll see what happens when the tax bill passes and how the market reacts to that. What crypto doesn't want here is a bottoming dollar at a critical junction for a breakout at all-time highs, right? We do not want to see the dollar magically finding support here. It doesn't need to continue to go lower, but can it just wait a minute while BTC breaks out or alts recover, whatever? Because if this suddenly strengthens back above 100, crypto's going to have a hard time breaking out again. So let's all pray to the dollar gods that just stays put. 10-year yield has been bouncy, noisy, below 4.5 now, closer to 4.25. That's good. That's where we want to see it. 2.4 below 4 would be great for risk markets. Again, we'll see what happens when the tax bill passes, because there will probably be a reaction off of that, even though you'd think at this point that would be priced in, considering the bill is likely to pass at some point. Anything above 4.6 would probably be a danger zone level, and you'd probably see a reaction off of that, including gold, including SPY, everything, right? Now, gold tried to tease a breakout in June, pulled back for like 7 consecutive days after the breakout, after I put on a leveraged gold trade. Hey, that's okay. the way the cookie crumbles. Still hanging in there though. Still looks okay above the cloud, back above this neckline resistance, and it should be fine. I think ultimately, based on the debt situation, not just in the US, but globally, it doesn't really make sense to expect gold to be bearish. Treading water, sure, but bearish is unlikely because everybody's printing money, and this is a fixed supply asset along with BTC. And because everybody's printing money, and because liquidity is gangbusters, here we are back at all-time highs with the SPY. Just a beast, continues to move to all-time highs. Continues to look overbought, but it is what it is. You have not gotten a singular Williams fractal stop loss trip on the way down. You have not gotten a close below the Tenkan. So until you see either of those things, it doesn't really make sense to take a bunch off the table just yet, looking at this in a vacuum. And if we look at some data on all-time highs versus all other days, the 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year return here are all positive. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but all-time highs certainly aren't bearish. And if we look at Qs, they have also hit a new all-time high. Haven't quite hit their measured move target, 562 to 608. So there's a little room here. Is this enough for a fresh trade? Is this a great setup here? I don't think so. Buy, sell, or hold. It's a hold for now, as long as it can maintain itself above those trailing stop loss levels. But I still don't like anything fresh up here personally. It's not for me. Here's SMH, closer to that take profit target, 281 to 316. So again, fresh trades up here don't make sense to me on the index level. Individual names absolutely make sense to me, but on an index level, no. AMD also approaching its expected move. Didn't quite get there just yet, 153 to 180, but it's close. Marvell, same deal, just a vanilla edge to edge. Hasn't gotten there, but it's close. And if we're just taking semis in a microcosm of the market, would I rather open fresh trades here or here? Even here is probably a little late. And I'd look for anything at this point that's an ultra laggard and is closer to the June setup that Marvell had. Just feels a little late on anything like that to me. Now, IWM is something that I've historically never traded. Opened a trade in May-June timeframe because of how the cloud looked. And now we're getting this laggard catch-up trade from the SPY into IWM. This to me still has plenty of room to run, again, relative to the other stuff, just based on risk reward. Your stop loss is 207. Your target is 236 plus. Still a great setup. It took a while to get off the launch pad here. The staging area took a minute, but as long as this can hold above the cloud with a pattern, I like it. I like it for higher highs. Has plenty of room to go. IVZ, similar situation. This is Invesco. As we enter into the setup portion of the video, little IHS action, bullish cloud breakout. This is where my mind is at. My mind is at individual names that have either a pattern or a trend rationale to move higher. Redfin, ascending triangle. It's going to take some time. It's a 3-day chart. But there are a few of these, Lyft is another, that have kind of done nothing for a few years here. And if, for whatever reason, there's a broadening out, there is liquidity conditions appropriate, there is a rate environment appropriate, you'd expect some of this stuff to start to catch a bid. At least I'd think. And we can throw Roku in that mix as well. Little ascending triangle action. Similar story. Has done nothing for years, just sort of consolidating. SMCI is has a hand in everything. It's got its own regulatory issues. It's sort of in the semis thing. It's sort of in the AI thing. It's above the cloud again. It's traded pretty awfully, very volatile. This current setup is probably not better than what we saw in the latter half of 24, in mid 24, or in the latter half of 23. But it is back above the cloud, and I know it's a retail darling that tends to get a lot of momentum once it starts to take off. So it's definitely one I'm keeping an eye on here. Figs again. I don't know anybody else who talks about this chart more than me, but I know I don't care about the company at all, right? It's all about technicals, and this is a multi-year falling wedge consolidation that looks to me like it's ready to try to break out. At least Rivian also in that boat. Same exact idea. You can throw anything at me. They're removing the EV credit, tariffs, I don't know, right? XYZ. It's not about that. It's all about the chart. The chart looks really good. There's also a little ascending triangle action back here. If this can start to peak above those are the types of charts I like to trade. I'm still on this Reddit idea. There's an edge to edge there. I think it has a little bit of room to go. Probably not a great entry today, but I think it's important to follow through with some of this stuff to get a handle on, okay, when should I have taken this trade if I did not? And if I did, what is the plan here? Is the plan from June still the plan for July? Are technicals playing out as expected? That sort of thing. So I'm still holding that one till it can hit the target there. As far as Mag 7, as a group, a lot of dispersion going on. A lot of these are at all-time highs, and there's Apple that has sort of done nothing. There could be a world where you get rotation from Microsoft, Meta, Netflix, whoever, into Apple. Now you could say, well, the Apple's AI strategy has been awful. They've been lagging behind everybody. That's true. I'm not going to deny that. I've never liked the company. But if the technicals start to continue to turn around here, I start to like it a little bit more. So you could argue, is this anything? Is it an inverted head and shoulders? Is it a vanilla diagonal break? Ultimately, I like it when the cloud likes it. So we're not quite there yet, but it's starting to look a heck of a lot better than it did the entire first half of the year. Google just middling here, not really doing much of anything. It is above the cloud, but it's been super choppy here in the first half of the year. Meta, you got to be careful because some of these are just holding this multi-month bear div where you just may see underperformance here. Now, this whole thing could make a cup and handle yet to be formed, similar to BTC, right? It's going to be interesting. Does Mag 7 break out before BTC? Does BTC lead Mag 7? Does everything pull back? Does Meta pull back to 610 because that's where the Kijun is? And does that pull BTC to 93K? Today, the girls were fighting. Elon and Trump were going at it again. So Tesla's way down, and I think BTC is getting dragged a little bit with that. It's getting dragged a little bit because tech is down broadly relative to small caps. Unlike BTC versus alts, small caps actually caught a bid today. Alts clearly not catching a bid. So you definitely got to be careful on the altcoin side. Always. Here's Microsoft also carrying somewhat of a bear div up here. All-time highs aren't bearish. Having this overbought stance isn't necessarily bearish, but I would be careful up here. Does this look like a fresh trade today? No, it doesn't. Not to me. Amazon, better than Google, not as overbought as everything else. Again, you may get some sort of cup and handle situation relative to the market. Doesn't look terrible here. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Netflix, just a beast. Unstoppable since 2022. What a trend channel that thing is. You're probably a buyer close to 1,000, but what do you do here? I think you just use a trailing stop loss and go about your day. But it has continued to bounce nonstop since 2022. Tesla probably looks the worst out of everything. It was unable to break the cloud and hold above the cloud May, June, July. It did have a successful EDE. It did have a successful W double bottom here. At this point, the next trade will be a bullish Kumo breakout. And not a day before then, not a moment before then, until you get a pattern. Because the current outlook here is potentially double top situation. If this goes flat and does nothing and then breaks, love it. It doesn't have to break down, but I can't long this. It's literally below the cloud today on whatever news, right? It doesn't matter. Technicals are technicals. Potentially could go back to 250 or lower. It just doesn't make sense to me. So until this thing is back above 316, that may be Q4, I don't know. Doesn't really make sense as a trade to the long side. This or Apple all day. Apple looks like it's trying to get on the upswing, whereas Tesla is giving everything back. Tesla or Uber all day, right? Consolidating all-time highs, trying to break for continuation. It's just a different story altogether. Now, Uber versus Lyft is maybe a harder decision. I like a little bit of both, maybe. But what's bad for Tesla is usually great for Uber, so that's probably why Uber should continue to do better as long as Tesla can do nothing or pull back. Onto the miners, which again sort of fit AI and the power theme. Some of the miners have started to wake up. This is XLU. This is not a miner, but if something like XLU, which is utilities, starts to break out, it looks excellent. It looks amazing. Now, it's not going to outperform anything in a bull market, but when the SPY's at an all-time high and looks a little overbought, and Microsoft is overbought, right? Mag 7 broadly, most of them that have been successful overbought, and I'm looking for places to allocate today. XLU continues to look good to me. the previous idea was invalidated and then recovered. It just is what it is, right? It's back above the cloud again. So of course I'm going to love it. It's sitting here, which I think is near an all-time high. And the more this type of stuff starts to break out, it's going to be harder for BTC to break out, or to not break out, right? It's going to be harder for BTC to break down. If the entire market is saying higher, if commodities are saying higher, gold is saying higher, it's just going to be harder and harder and harder for BTC eventually to just stagnate and do nothing. Here's MSTR. Not really much to say. No comment. Just flat, ranging still. You want to see this thing ultimately above 410, 420. Still above the cloud. It just is what it is. I have nothing particular to say about it. You don't want this below probably 350 on a close if you're bullish today. But still looks okay for Q3 and Q4. Miners, bit of a different story. You had your bullish Kuma breakout there a couple days ago at this point on the cores news. You had a twisty and windy edge to edge that eventually got there. And the cloud is finally back on the bull side here. So just from a trend pitchfork perspective, you could argue maybe 40, maybe 50 on the upside here, which would be a 2x. What I have a hard time thinking about is, okay, yes, I love utilities right here. I love that chart. BTC hasn't broken out yet. Miners have pulled away a little bit. They've been performing better. I would love to see BTC actually break out. Then I could be more confident that miners will give you that 2x. So I'd still use caution here, even though miners have been doing really well. This is IREN, broke out a couple days ago and just didn't look back, right, on the cloud. Again, you have your edge to edge back here. You have your entry on that idea back here with a bullish TK across, price in the cloud. So everything is going right now for some of these miners, and you're getting exactly what you want, which is a reaction at an expected level, in this case with bullish continuation. I don't have a target on this, but you could always measure something from 15 to 5. You could say, well, maybe is this whole thing going to be a cup and handle if BTC pulls back a little bit? Possible. And that would be the next trade to look for, is a horizontal breach at 15-ish after consolidation between probably 13 to 15. Mara, on the other hand, we do have today a bullish Kuma breakout, price above cloud, bullish TK cross. This is the day where the cloud says, you know nothing, Mr. Fundamental Individual. The technicals are telling you, buy this chart. That's what it's telling me. So do you believe or not? I don't. I have a hard time believing. Mara, I probably should just believe and buy. You could always argue, well, maybe just size this down. But this is the exact day that you want in any chart, in any altcoin, in anything. This has done nothing for months, sideways, finally making a higher high, finally flipping on the cloud. So I can't knock it from an entry perspective. Wolf, similar, close to getting everything bullish here. And CleanSpark also in the same boat as Mara, has been above the cloud for a few days now. So if you feel like you're late on WGMI and late on IREN, one thing you can do is look at some of the laggards that are catching up. Maybe they won't perform as well. Maybe they will just be duds. I don't know. But that's where I'd be looking today for trades. Coin is another one. I don't really know what to do here. I don't really know what this necessarily could be. Maybe this whole thing is a cup and handle. I don't have a great read on it. Maybe there's another cup and handle here. Lots of cup and handle type stuff in the market because everything's back to previous levels. I don't see any immediate trade here on the 3-day or the daily for coin. And of course, Hood on its way, like everything else, to its breakout target. And I just put this big green arrow here as a reminder. That's the exact day where you say, okay, this may be in the stratosphere already, but the cloud is telling me with price above cloud, bullish TK cross, I need to think about seriously buying this thing again. Then you got the pattern. And I did not believe at 65 that this thing would continue. And here we are at 93 on our way to 100. For a lot of these cup and handle patterns currently in the formation stages, one thing you have to keep in mind is, do you want to buy current resistance, which in that case would have been 65, waiting for a pullback? Or do you just say, all right, I know what this could be. I know what this looks like. I'm going to buy something here. I'm going to buy more lower. I'm going to buy more higher. That's another way to tackle this because there's a lot of this in the market right now where you haven't quite seen this extension like you have on Hood. So I think the broad indices are a little overbought. Don't need to pull back, but I think there's better money allocated elsewhere. There's some laggard ideas that I've highlighted, both high time frame and short time frame. Even everybody's favorite, the miners, are starting to finally wake up. That's all there for this one. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.